Now, today we'll dive a little deeper in terms of what does that mean to have a challenger attitude or a challenger mindset. What can you do to develop one? And what are some of the characteristics of people who have this mindset in order to do it well? So every organization, if it really wants to drive innovation within its walls, they need someone who can actually challenge the status quo, and not just challenge for the sake of challenge, but challenge so that there can be progress. So challenge so that everyone moves forward, so that everyone is better off because of the challenge posed by this person or this organization. Every single one of the organization which is driving significant amount of innovation, which is driving significant amount of transformation within their organization, you'll always find that there is someone who's driving or who's challenging the status quo, who's challenging how things need to be done, how things need to be, and the assumptions that the organization has or the industry has from that point of view as well. And my personal opinion is that CIOs and their organization is probably the best suited in order to be able to do that. Why do I say that? I think by the virtue of the fact that your organization touches every single part of the entire larger business, you have the visibility which generally a CFO or a CEO has, which is across the organization. And if you actually have the ability to look across the organization, you also have the ability to have impact on across the organization. And you can do so by challenging the status quo. Now, the question is, how do you go about doing this? And what are some of the repercussions of doing this? And how do you manage those repercussions? And at the same time, what are some of the qualities that we need to inculcate in ourselves as CIOs so that we get better at being a challenger? Now, challenging the status quo doesn't mean that you challenge a particular person. It is always challenging the process or the belief or the assumption or challenging a thing rather than challenging someone. It's a very important distinction. You need to be seen to be challenging things, something, rather than challenging someone. The moment you start challenging someone, it becomes a political battle. And there are some political battles which are better avoided, power struggles being one of them, as far as possible. So always keep in mind that we start challenging things and not challenging people. So that's the first one. Now, if you actually want to challenge things, so what are some of the things that you can actually challenge, right? So you can challenge what is visible in terms of behaviors and processes. You can challenge the fact as to, why is it that a particular process needs to be done a particular way? Is there a better way to do it? Is there a faster way to do it? Is there a cheaper way to do it? Can you completely do away with actually taking care of that process at all? You'll find that every function within the organization has a set of assumptions, has a set of preset beliefs, has a set of things need to be done this way only kind of processes, things which people call holy cows. Challenging them and challenging them in a way that is productive and not challenging somebody who's actively running the process. Now, how do you do that? Is by asking why. Very simple. So why do we need to do this? And why do we need to do it this way? Why? The answer, you again ask why. Why do we need it? Why is this needed to be done? Another way to ask is, what is the assumption that is driving this process? What is it that we believe that makes this process or that makes this steps in the process mandatory? What are some of the assumptions that we have? Not just we as an organization, but it could be as an industry. It could be as a society, as a country. It could be as a cultural, socio-cultural group, whichever group you may want to think about it. It may be assumptions based on the functional team that you're part of, whatever way. So there are multiple levels of assumptions and beliefs that go into doing a certain thing a certain way. By gently asking these questions like why now, why at this point, what, these are questions. What if? These are gentle nudges which kind of open up conversations, which you can then use to significantly improve your processes. As someone very nicely said, intelligent challenges are like oxygen of progress. So if you really want progress, both in terms of your digital transformation journey, as well as the ability to drive innovation within your organization, the oxygen that can drive that are intelligent challenges. A lot of times these challenges can come from the CEO himself or herself. Sometimes these challenges come from external consultants whom the organization hires to help them drive innovation. But there's nothing that stops us from playing that role. Intelligent challenges are those challenges which actually help us make significant progress with the least amount of resources possible. So in order to be able to be seen as a challenger, it is not enough to challenge everyone else. Right? Then it becomes a hypocritical way, and there is a clear, you will find significant amount of resistance. So the challenges start with yourself. Can you challenge yourself about the status quo that you are seeing or you are having in your organization, in yourself as a person? Can you challenge some of the processes that you are running in your organization? Can you challenge some of the practices or the status quo practices that you have in your organization? Can you challenge the way the IT organization thinks and behaves and reacts to the requests from the business? Can you challenge some of the self-limiting beliefs that your organization has? Once you start challenging this entire challenging behavior from within yourself and from within your organization, and everyone sees that you've started from there, the amount of resistance that you will face when it comes to challenging practices of other organizations and other functions will be significantly less. It's not that you will not, you will. But the amount of challenges that you will face is probably slightly lesser, because then nobody can ask you, okay, what are you doing to challenge yourself or your organization? You can, people would have already seen you doing that. And once they've seen you doing that and see benefit out of of challenging the status quo, then the openness to go on that journey with you is slightly better. And in this game, every single opportunity to increase the odds of your colleagues actually participating with you in this journey is worth taking. You're not upsetting the status quo just for the sake of upsetting a status quo. You're upsetting the status quo so that you can make significant progress. Now, one of the things that is synonymous or goes hand in hand with challenger mindset is the ability to do more using less. And you do that by not depending on resources, but by depending on your resourcefulness. There's a slight but a very important distinction between being resourceful and having a lot of resources. If you are a CIO, you would already know this. Every year, the cost or the budget that you get for maintaining of your existing systems is reducing on an ongoing basis, year on year. And on top of that, you're expected to do a lot more with your existing resources. So in order to be able to continuously do that and do that better, what we need to do is to develop our resourcefulness. And it requires a lot of creativity. It requires a lot of challenging of assumptions, challenging the way we do things in order to be able to do this year after year after year, right? And when it comes to being a challenger, one of the things that, for that matter, even if not, I mean, even for a CIO in an organization, being relevant means is more important than not being accepted. And when it comes to challenge, biggest challenge for a CIO's organization is not rejection of everything that you say, but indifference to everything that you say. So if there is a debate, if there is a conversation, and if people are able to have a conversation with you, give you the hear you out, and at the end decide that whatever you're proposing is not something that they would like to go on right now, that's okay. That's good. It's bad if they are indifferent to whatever you're proposing. That means that you don't have the trust, you don't have the social capital that is required in order to drive significant amount of change, significant amount of transformation, which is what digital transformation is all about, right? In your organization, which means that you need to go about building that social capital first. And one of the easiest way to build that social capital is to continuously challenge yourself and your organization and find the other things that we spoke about in the other steps, which is, how do you go about finding problems worth solving? How do you solve those problems in a way that impacts or makes their lives, the business's life easier, better? And at the same time, how do you think like a futurist in order to be able to get a seat at the table and be taken seriously, right? And when you're doing these challenges or when you're challenging the status quo, one thing that we need to keep in mind is the values of your organization. Every organization is some centric. Some organizations are customer centric. Some organizations are manufacturing centric. Some organizations are sales centric. Some services centric. Some maybe procurement centric. But some partner centric. But there is some element or some part of your business which is core for your business and your current leadership team. You will find that the maximum amount of progress that you can do for the least amount of effort is usually by challenging the assumptions, the beliefs, the behaviors that your organization exhibits in that specific function of your business. So if you're, for example, partner-centric, then if you can challenge some of the status quo, some of the assumptions, some of the belief systems, some of the behaviors that your partner organization has, you will be able to have significant impact for the least amount of resources. That's not easy because that requires you to have enough social capital amongst with that particular function in order for them to be able to have a dialogue with you and for you to be able to influence them in a way so that you can make that progress. If you're not there yet, don't start it. Start small. Start building up your social capital before you go take the leap and start challenging the status quo of the function which is central to your organization's success. One of the things that will happen the moment you start challenging something is that you will start having uncomfortable conversations with people. You will find that people start taking things personally. While they do that, we need to be consistently talking about the thing that we are challenging and not the person that we are challenging. Even if they take it personally, you need to bring it back to the process, to the belief, to the assumption that we are challenging, and not make it about the person with whom we are having the debate. And that requires a significant amount of self-awareness. that requires a significant amount of self-control, the ability to self-regulate, and if I have to say it in a nutshell, it requires high emotional intelligence and high social intelligence. And as CIOs and as part of the CIO's organization or leadership team, we need to start developing these capacities within ourselves. So the ability to stay comfortable in uncomfortable conversations is key. You will start getting pressured through politics, through various means, to stop challenging the status quo. That's the nature of status quo, right? So the moment you start challenging the status quo, people who want it to remain will start pushing back. They'll start exerting pressure from all sides. Which means that if you really want to be a challenger, with a challenger mindset, you need to be able to learn how to absorb pressure and not react to it. Staying cool under pressure is a significantly important attribute that you need to develop as a CIO of an organization. And creating challenges or challenging the status quo is all about creating tension. Creative tension, if I may say so. As long as you are able to create these creative tensions and hold people in that tension and come up with creative solutions for addressing the problem or the insight that you have, which could potentially lead to significant increase in productivity, significant increase in effectiveness, significant increase in your overall efficiency. That is what challenging status quo is all about. The ability to create, maintain, and release tension as and when needed. So if you really want to do all of these things, what are some of the things that you might need in order to successfully be a challenger? First and foremost, you need to build a community of champions within your team first, and then outside of your teams. Every time you run a project with, let's say, for example, a particular function, the project lead from that function, you should be able to sign them up as your champions. You need to be able to build these capabilities, which is the ability to be comfortable and being uncomfortable with uncomfortable conversations, ability to absorb pressure, ability to create and maintain tensions, the ability to creatively challenge status quo, the ability to offer a unique perspective, the ability to have conversations, the ability to go deep with questions like why. All of this is something that you need to not just have for yourself as the CIO of your organization, but you need to also get your team to develop all of these things. And they then become the community of champions who go out in your organization and actually spread the word and enroll for the cause. Be relentlessly focused on the value center of your organization. So for example, if you are a partner-centric organization, you're relentlessly focused on how do you make that particular function significantly better. If it is a sales organization, how do you make selling significantly better? If it is a marketing-focused organization, how do you make marketing significantly better? So relentlessly focused on the value system that drives your organization. One of the ways that you can actually create these tensions is by running internal debates. So I know of this customer who runs regular debates on varied topics. So for example, is AI good for the business or bad? So he'll invite someone who will talk for AI. He'll invite someone who will talk against AI. Well rehearsed, well prepared, well planned. And then they have their arguments both ways. And then as a team, they get to decide which parts of the arguments are relevant for their organization and should accept and move forward with. A lot of times we get stuck in both the extremes. If we believe that AI is good or AI is bad, believe that X is good, Y is bad. Whereas the reality is never as clear as that. So reality is always somewhere in the middle. And in order to find that middle ground, it is important that you express and expose yourself to both the extreme ends of the arguments so that you can identify which part of the extremes is relevant for your organization and kind of, take that perspective and move forward. Another way that you can do this is by running simulations. So let's assume that you're a company manufacturing, let's say, automobiles. Now, what happens if you run a simulation game where you want different teams to come up with ways of competing against your current business? So that's what startups do, right? They use technology, which is current technology, and deploy the technology in a unique way in a specific industry, which makes the existing players somewhat irrelevant. Can you run hackathons, or can you run these simulation exercises where teams can actually come up with various different ideas of how to attack your existing business and win against it? That gives you the ability to see what are potential blind spots that the leadership team has. That gives you the ability, and you can even invite startups, or you can invite students, or external facing employees, external partners and strategic vendors in the simulation to bring in that diversity of perspective. That is a very clear way to identify potential areas of competition in the future. It could also give you potential areas of new growth. So instead of waiting for some startup or some other organization to come and compete with you on a given criteria, can you start a new business unit which does that before any startup comes and starts challenging you, or for that matter, any other competitor comes and starts challenging you on that dimension? That's another way for you to kind of create these challenges to status quo. Now, last but not the least, here are some of the attributes of CIOs, or for that matter, any executive who wants to be a challenger. Number one, you need to have a strong sense of self and the ability to hold yourself against criticism, while at the same time being open for learning. To be ambitious, you need to be able to question things, not just to agitate, but to drive improvement and progress. You need to be able to manage pressure or absorb pressure. You need to be able to create, maintain, and alleviate tension. You need to be a good communicator, both written as well as oral. You need to have the ability to inspire others to see what others are not able to see right now. And you need to be tenacious with a positive outlook. So I'd like to end today's talk by quoting Bob Iger, who was the chairman of Disney. He's quoted as saying, the riskiest thing one can do is to just maintain status quo. The riskiest thing one can do is to just maintain status quo. Do not succumb to status quo. As a CIO, it is one of your responsibilities and one of your role to keep challenging the status quo. and make the organization significantly better for having done so. Thank you. And I hope you are finding these sessions useful, helpful. Please do let me know what you think of these sessions, and specifically about what do you think of developing a challenger mindset. Thank you so much.